Is it your new house, new room?
Yes, I finally have an office rather than sitting on the sofa.
Your room has a blue in there. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it allowed? Well, it's not. It's not red, at least.
It's not red. No.
Yeah. Okay. I have prepared some questions from Korean fans to you.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me ask you about those, and let me begin with. I mean, let's be honest. You know.
Yeah.
I know you are always honest to me, and just be honest on the camera.
Yeah, of course.
All right. The first question is, can you introduce yourself? I mean, Korean fans know your name, but they don't know who you are. So can you? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm Alasdair Gold, work for Football.London, write about Tottenham Hotspur. I've got a long old connection with Tottenham because my dad was a big Tottenham fan, and when I was growing up, he used to take me to White Hart Lane as a kid to watch Spurs. So obviously, it started a long time ago. Then obviously, I became a reporter. Used to cover crime and news and things like that. And then I started to cover local low-level football, and I slowly kind of built my way up. And then eventually, I was asked to cover Tottenham, which obviously, growing up as a fan, as a kid, was a dream. And I've been doing that now since the summer of 2016. So some very interesting seasons, some highs and lows. Obviously, the Champions League final, as you know very well. Some wonderful goals, some wonderful matches that night in Amsterdam. And then some not so nice moments, you know, with some matches that really haven't been very nice to report on. And yeah, it's brought me to where I am now. So it's all been fun. I've always enjoyed it.
Right. So, I mean, exactly when did you start covering Spurs as a journalist?
Spurs was the summer of 2016.
2016. Yeah. So
yeah.
before then, but you always followed Spurs, right?
I did. I used to write about them as a hobby. Used to write blogs and things like that on Spurs websites, things like that. And yeah, and then obviously became kind of professional at writing just about Spurs in 2016.
All right. And right, let's get into the serious questions from now. I mean, what's wrong with Spurs at the moment? I mean, they were at the top of the league at some point this season, but now, I mean, everything seems not going well at the moment. What do you think?
I think they lost their confidence, and I think they're scared to do the things that make them special. I think a lot of the players there's a fear factor. They're a little bit worried that, you know, they've seen a lot of the players that suddenly got taken out of the team, like Dele Alli and Harry Winks, Toby Alderweireld, players like that have had long spells out of the team, and there's a fear that if they don't keep everything safe and, you know, keep everything accurate, then they'll be taken out of the team. You can kind of sense that in matches. They're not trying stuff. They're not taking risks with their play. And that's leading to very muted performances, and especially at Brighton, you know, and to sit there in a very, very cold stadium, the Amex Stadium, on Sunday night, and the football was so poor. Obviously, we've seen Brighton have gone on and put that performance in against Liverpool, so we know that they're not a bad team at all. But for Tottenham to only have one shot at a goal in the first half, and only, I think, 7 more in the second half, whereas Brighton had 16, it shouldn't be that way around. And I think it shows, a lot of fear creeping into their play, and they just need to relax because they've got the quality.
You know, I mean, when I was hearing what you are saying, I mean, it's the 100% opposite of their motto, right? Their motto is to dare is to do. Yeah, it's exactly the wrong way, the opposite way. And why?
Exactly.
Why they are fearing about that?
I think Mourinho has a part to play. I think he runs a very tight ship. You know, he's like the captain of the ship, and he very much doesn't allow anything to happen that he doesn't want to happen. And I think, whereas with Mauricio Pochettino, it was more of kind of like a family, a dad with his, kids, if you were. But with Mourinho, it's more of very much a boss and players kind of attitude. And I think they're just worried about their places, and they just lost that. Obviously, earlier in the season, we had Sonny and Kane's brilliant partnership. And that's been broken up at the moment with Kane being out. And I just think they're losing that little bit of magic. A little bit of individual quality isn't shining through. And I think it's just fear and lack of confidence at the moment. Mourinho calls it the lack of self-esteem, is what he calls it.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, as we are talking about that, I mean, there are a lot of criticism on Mourinho. How do you think about those criticisms? So many fans are saying his style is too old, maybe, or outdated. How do you think about those?
I think it's probably somewhere in between. I don't think he's not finished. He's not a dinosaur. He's got very young coaches around him in João Sacramento and Ledicking now. Mm-hmm. So, he's not going to be outdated methods because he's refreshed his coaching team. I think he goes for the safety first angle sometimes. Mm-hmm. He's tried to fix the Tottenham defence, which used to be a brilliant defence. Mm-hmm. Back in Pochettino's day, when he had Rose, Walker, Alderweireld and Vertonghen all at their peak, it was one of the best defences in the country.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of those players have either aged or they've moved on. And I think Mourinho's had to come in and rebuild the defence. And I think he's put almost too much emphasis on building that foundation. Mm-hmm. And that's actually led to not as much creativity and attacking play. Mm. And I think that's what we're seeing now. It's this struggle between trying to make them not concede goals, but also it's having a knock-on effect of they're not scoring them either. So I think he just needs a bit of time. I don't think I don't think people should panic just yet. The man's won so much, 25 trophies in 20 years. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. Mm. It's not pretty to watch, but I think maybe that comes when he makes them solid enough.
Then do you believe there's a chance that Mourinho will get fired before the end of this season?
I think the only way that happens is if he really falls out with the players. If the players, there's a big split between him and the players, which I would be surprised. Daniel Levy still has a lot of faith in him. Daniel Levy has spent years chasing Mourinho, trying to bring him to Tottenham, even way back when he was Porto manager. So he will give him as much time as possible, and he still believes he can be successful. But I suppose what we also got to understand, it's a very different club for Mourinho, isn't it? It's almost going back to his Porto days. He hasn't got millions and millions to spend on the players. He hasn't, he can't just have an argument with one player, drop him because he knows there's an incredible player he can replace it with. So he's got to kind of compromise as well. I'd be surprised if he was gone by the end of the season. But you never know in football. You never know.
You said Mourinho has 25 trophies in 20 years or something. I mean, a lot. Yeah. And that's what Spurs mostly need, a trophy, right? And then do you believe, I mean, they are in the final. Yeah. So do you believe with Mourinho, Spurs can get a trophy in the near future?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I agree. Pochettino used to say, and he did get criticised for it, that winning the League Cup, the Carabao Cup, or winning the FA Cup doesn't really change a club. It doesn't transform them into a bigger club. It would only be winning the Premier League or the Champions League that would do that. I do agree with that. However, I think Mourinho's philosophy is slightly different in that he feels that if you win the Carabao Cup, then you can then use that as like a snowball and use that to bring other trophies. Sure. So I think if they can get one in the bag, I think under Mourinho that would lead to others.
Right. I mean, you said that. I mean, when I asked you about is there any chance that Mourinho will get fired before the end of the season, you said unless Mourinho has serious issues with his players, right? But there are a lot of talks. I mean, a lot of rumors. I don't know about that. There are some issues between the players and Mourinho at the moment. do you believe, as a journalist who is following all Spurs games, do you believe is that true or not? There is a split between the players and Mourinho.
I think you can clearly see that some players aren't playing, and those players will be unhappy. I think that's a natural thing for any footballer.
Yeah.
You know, we know Dele Alli wasn't happy. We know Harry Winks wasn't happy. Toby Alderweireld has only played half of the Premier League matches this season, so he won't have been happy. I think the key for Mourinho is keeping probably the key people happy. So Kane, Sonny, Lloris, players like that. As long as he's got them on board, the kind of leaders of the group, I think he's okay. And the other players, it's about, as I said, I think compromise is the biggest thing for Mourinho. He's got this reputation of it's my way or no way. And I think at a club like Tottenham, everyone's so close. It's such a tight-knit group. So say Dele, for example. Dele is so popular. You know, Sonny loves him, Kane loves him, every player loves him. So if you continually freeze out Dele Alli, then it starts to go to the other players. And I think, you know, he had a meeting with Dele on Tuesday to discuss the future and try to bring him back into stuff. And I think that was really important. And it kind of showed that maybe Mourinho is willing to compromise. Now, hopefully that helps with other players as well.
So he's trying, you are saying, at the moment. Yeah. He's and that at the same time, that means, yes, there is some issues at the moment. And we are speaking about Dele Alli at the moment. I mean, he seems to leave to PSG, where Pochettino is leading at the moment. Yeah. And do you think, is it Mourinho or Levy who blocked the deal at the last minute?
Well, very much Levy. There's a lot of people at Tottenham. There's a lot of people at Tottenham that believe that you shouldn't get rid of Dele Alli. He's only 24 years old. And yes, he's had a couple of seasons where his form has dipped. But 24-year-olds, that's always going to happen. Every player has had a season, maybe two, where he's gone down. And I think, whereas Mourinho was happy to let him go, the biggest problem always was if they were going to do a short-term loan just to make him feel better, get his confidence back, you had to have a player coming in because Lo Celso is out till possibly March. And obviously Tottenham have this homegrown player problem where they have too many foreign players to fit into their squad under the rules. So to let Dele Alli, a homegrown player, go, they'd have had to bring in another homegrown player.
Yeah.
And they're so expensive in today's market. So Levy really it was always quite unlikely that he was going to let Dele go, to be honest. Whereas Mourinho, I think, would have been happy enough had that happened. I think it's a good thing. And I think Dele, Mourinho and Spurs now work together. I think they need each other. I do.
Right. And the Spurs fans, I mean, the fans in UK, the born and raised Spurs fans in UK, how they feel about Mourinho at the moment? There are a lot of fans want Mourinho out at the moment, it seems. I mean, you would be seeing those fans in London.
Well, it's a difficult one because fans aren't in the stadiums and they're not out on the streets because of lockdown. Sure. Everything is being judged by social media, which, you know, as we all know, isn't always the best way to judge stuff because you have extreme reactions and noisy. People are noisier on social media. And what I would say, I think Mourinho is very lucky that the fans aren't in the stadiums because I think the football would have people complaining in the stadiums. It's not good football at the moment. I think I'd probably say Spurs fans have still got to warm to Mourinho. I think we must, you know, they'll never forget that he was the Chelsea manager. And he used to say things about Tottenham in the past to put them down because that's what you do as a Chelsea manager. So I think he's still got to win a lot of the fans over. And at the moment, that's not happening. But he can. It's all about trophies. I think I think people can put up with football not being great if it brings trophies at the end of it.
Sure.
But if it doesn't, then what was the point in changing Pochettino? That's what they'll think, I think, the fans.
Sure. And do you believe Spurs can make top 4 this season?
Yeah, I do. Because although the results recently haven't been very good, what Mourinho will tell you is they've only lost 5 games in their last 30 matches. So there is a kind of consistency there. And when you look at the other teams, they don't have that consistency. So if Tottenham can just add that attacking threat again, I think they can go on a big run and potentially get into that top 4.
All right. And okay, now, I mean, for your experience, I mean, as a Spurs fan and as a Spurs journalist, who was the best Spurs manager in your view so far? Is it Pochettino or Martin Jol or is it Mourinho? Who was the best?
That's a really difficult question. I think in terms of a personal connection, Martin Jol, I used to love watching his team, and I was very fortunate enough to kind of do a bit of work with him as well, so I got to know him very well. And I always feel that Martin Jol's team started getting Tottenham to where they are now. I feel that he built those foundations and turned them from a mid-table team into one that could get into Europe and stuff like that. So he was fantastic, and then I did feel that Mauricio Pochettino, again, had a very good kind of connection with him. I think he took Spurs to another level that they haven't seen in decades, a long time. And I think Mourinho could take Tottenham above that level, but we just haven't seen that yet. So I'd say, for me, Pochettino and Martin Jol are the two in my lifetime. You know, obviously you've got Bill Nicholson, Keith Birkinshaw back in the past, but in my lifetime, Martin Jol and Poch took Spurs to new levels.